Not getting your health and wellness questions answered at your doctor's office? Are you ready to take control of your health and well-being? Do you want the proper tools to set you on your wellness journey? Do you want to meet and chat with expert members of the healthcare team? Well, step into Real Time with Dr. Stacy. Hi, I'm Dr. Stacy de Gale, your personal physiotherapist and wellness consultant who wants to make sure that you live your best life. We'll be chatting with wellness team members and inviting you as you are the center of that team. And we'll be doing all of this while you are in the comfort of your own home or office. Join me in Real Time with Dr. Stacy as we discuss everything health and everything wellness. Hi everyone, and welcome to Real Time with Dr. Stacy. It has been quite a while. People have been asking, Stacy, when are you coming back on with your show? And I said, I'm coming back soon. It was not soon enough, but I am here and back with a bang. And I'm so excited to have all of you with me. And feel free to share this broadcast with your friends and family, because we are about to embark upon a brief journey to learn more about Alzheimer's disease, a disease that we need to be concerned about because each and every one of us is getting younger. However you want to translate that, I'm trying to convince myself that I'm still, in my 30s. Don't ask me the age. But this is important information that we need to know. We need to know what it is, how we can prevent it, how we can manage it. And the aim at the end of the day is to improve the quality of life of someone who has been diagnosed with Alzheimer's, as well as educating the caregiver so that we can provide the best care for that patient who is part of us, part of our families, who is a friend, who is a neighbor. So again, thank you all for joining me. I'm seeing Shavana is on. Shavana, hi, good evening. She's always on all our shows. She's one of my neighbors. Pleasure. And to all those who are coming on, welcome. Remember, this is an opportunity for all of us to learn. So you have the opportunity to leave your comments. If you have any questions, we'll try to answer them. And if we cannot get to all your questions tonight, you could drop me a line after and I will get the answers to you. So enough talk from me. I am just going to be guiding the ship as we invite two fantastic women. I always have to be a little biased. Sorry, guys, I have to be a little biased because we have some strong, powerful women who are local intelligence. And I want to emphasize that. Quite often, we think that we do not get right information, and we have the right information at our fingertips right here. And I want to first welcome Miss Michele Saunders Clavery. Now, I like to give introductions, and I want you all to understand the sort of resource person you have sitting in front of you tonight. Miss Saunders is a lifelong educator with almost 40 years. She's not looking at 40 years in the field of education at both secondary and tertiary levels. She holds a master's degree in education, a postgrad professional diploma as well in education, a diploma in marketing and advertising, and a bachelor's degree in English and political science. She currently serves as head of the Continuing Studies Department at the Cipriani Labour College, and she served as senior lecturer and head of the General Education Department. She was former head of the Developmental Education Department as well. She's currently a columnist for the Anglican Outlook, and she has served as director and vice president of the Alzheimer's Association of Trinidad and Tobago, of which she is currently the president. So I would like to welcome Miss Michele Saunders Clavery. This is just a brief excerpt of her expertise. Thank you so much for being here with us.
And thank you for having us, Dr. de Gale, Stacy. I feel really grand, having heard all that. Really grand this evening. The whole thing about the powerful women and so on.
Of course.
But I thank you.
And there's no elaboration. It is what you have accomplished, and we need to elevate that. And for the viewers to realize that we have experts right here. So I'm going to welcome our second guest, Some of you from Deep South will know Dr. Liane Conyette-Bowen. Dr. Conyette graduated in 2005 with her MBBS, and she's primarily working at the San Fernando General Hospital. That's where I met her actually
Yes.
18 years ago. In 2014, she attained the postgraduate specialist degree in internal medicine. And from 2017 till today, she's looking young, but she is a consultant. Consultants don't have to be old and gray. She's a
Correct.
consultant in the Department of Internal Medicine at the San Fernando General Hospital and the teaching hospital. And I'm very happy to say that she has also completed a postgraduate diploma in the care of the elderly at the University of Wales, Trinity, with distinction, by the way, and a postgraduate diploma in geriatric medicine from UWI Mona, again with distinction. She is presently only 1 month, she's almost there, 1 month away from completing her thesis in the Masters of Care in the Elderly. She has enjoyed volunteering for many organizations. She is currently the vice president of the Alzheimer's Association of Trinidad and Tobago. She's an associate lecturer in the Department of Adult Medicine at the Faculty of MedSci at UE in St. Augustine. She's a director of the Trinidad and Tobago Heart Foundation, and she's a youth and mentorship co-chair of the Trinidad and Tobago Medical Association, of which she was also a past president. So, Dr. Liane Conyette-Bowen, welcome
Thank
to
you. Thank
welcome
you,
to
Stacy. Thank you for having us.
Of course. And, I really want to set this going because we have so much to cover in this short space of time. So I want you all to tell the audience what is Alzheimer's and what is the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia. Because even for me, as a clinician, sometimes we use the words interchangeably, and I know that we should not. So just to help the audience appreciate what that difference is. So, Michele, how about starting for us?
Okay, so as you say, we use the terms interchangeably, and we are only half right when we do so. Alzheimer's, when we speak of Alzheimer's now, we say Alzheimer's disease and other dementias, which tells you off the bat that Alzheimer's is a dementia, one of several dementias. So, dementia is the umbrella term. Why people seem to, or not seem to, but why it's used interchangeably, it's in my thinking, it's because Alzheimer's is the most prevalent of the dementia. So from the time we say here dementia, we think Alzheimer's. It turns out to be that oftentimes, but then there are several others. Dr. Conyette can speak to that, Lewy body, and just one of many. And so Parkinson's disease, in case people didn't know, is one of the dementias. And so,
That's lovely.
yes, so when we say Alzheimer's dementia, we are correct in saying Alzheimer's dementia as opposed to Lewy body dementia or any other dementias. Yeah.
And that's so interesting because I am actually a certified manager of treatment for Parkinson's disease. And I did not put it in that category of dementia. So that's such an interesting point. And thinking about it, I can understand just looking at the what happens with Parkinson's patients of why it will fall in that category. So, Dr. Conyette-Bowen, can you give us some more information regarding the types of Alzheimer's and why it is not enough to say, oh gosh, that person forgetting the keys, so they must
Yeah,
have Alzheimer's.
sure, sure. So dementia is an umbrella term. So think of your umbrella and think of the spokes of the umbrella. So the spokes are the different types of dementias. So dementia is a syndrome. So in other words, it's a collection of symptoms. Dementia is usually chronic or progressive in nature, and it leads to deterioration in your cognitive function. So what do we mean by cognitive function? We mean that our ability to process thought. So dementia is a syndrome, it's chronic, it's progressive, leading to a deterioration in your ability to process thought, more than what is expected from the usual consequences of aging. So that's why your clip, how you introduced this talk was
Yes.
important. So dementia is more than what you see with normal aging. So in dementia, there are two or more problems in the brain function. You get a problem with memory, with thinking, your ability to calculate, your ability to reason, your ability to understand, to learn new stuff, judgment. All these things become affected in dementia. Now, this impairment in cognition or impairment in the ability to process thought is usually accompanied and sometimes preceded by change in mood, change in behavior, motivation change. Okay. So, as Michele mentioned before, if dementia is the whole umbrella term, yes, Alzheimer's disease is the most common cause of dementia. We see sometimes in 60 to 70% of the cases. And as Michele mentioned, there are so many other forms of dementia. Vascular dementia, that's when the blood vessels become affected. For example, in persons who have uncontrolled diabetes and hypertension, who had previous strokes. We have dementia with Lewy bodies. And Lewy bodies are these abnormal proteins that develop inside the nerve cells. We have frontotemporal dementia, which is what Bruce Willis has.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bruce Willis has. In other words, the frontal part of the brain is affected. And if you read up on Google, Dr. Google, you will see that Bruce Willis, he's young. He's not an older person and he's aphasic. His ability to speak is affected. So there are different types of dementia, and dementia is a whole umbrella term. Alzheimer's disease is the most common type.
Common type.
So it's not synonymous.
Right. And you bring up some interesting points and reminding us again that there are different types. But something you said there was that is interesting with regards to Bruce Willis's age,
Yeah.
because we often think that Alzheimer's is an old people disease,
Yeah.
right? So I see Miss Honor shaking her head. Speak on that. Remind the people about this myth.
Listen. Yes, listen. And when we think an old person's disease, we push them in the corner. We say, okay, the old people. It is not. Let me just share a little bit here. Over the past few weeks, we have been, the phone calls we have been receiving. We have had more than our usual number of folks who are calling in about a loved one who is living with Alzheimer's, and that person is in his or her 50s.
Wow.
So we have that. We had someone here years ago who was in her 30s, and her parents were caring for her. So it's not a normal part of aging at all.
Yes.
When we talk about Parkinson's disease, you just think neurological.
Yes.
When you think neurological as opposed to mental or chemical imbalance, and I'm here moonlighting as a physician, which I'm not. Let me say that up front. But I've been in this thing steep so long in it. But the thing is, it's neurological. And so this is why we would have the neurologist on board. This is why Parkinson's disease, because it's that brain thing that is trying to control movement and so on, that is affected. But we do have young folks, what we call a person under 60 who is living with the disease. It's called young onset Alzheimer's. And the thing is, this is why we are trying to get young people involved, not specifically because we are afraid that they would be, would have to live with the disease, but just so that they know, because they now would be the caregivers of tomorrow. They're part of what we call the sandwich generation, all right, where you have parents who are looking after or mothers and fathers who are looking after their parents as well as their own children. If the children got involved and understood, if only in part, that this disease is it's nothing to be feared, it is something to be treated with. And we were at a meeting today, if I mentioned this, Liane, with the Ministry of Health, where we were speaking about wanting to ensure that young people are really on board. Young people know what is going on so that they can take steps, and we don't push the elderly in the corner because they live with the disease. They can still talk to you, though they may not remember, but they can still talk. They're still very present. Okay, and so we must engage with them. And what better way than to have the younger folk engage with the elderly? Yeah.
This is so true. And again, so many amazing points coming out of this. So remember, viewers, Alzheimer's is not a natural progression of getting older. And this is where we always have the confusion because, again, I have clients with Parkinson's disease and they come to me quite late in the game because they were told by providers, well, you're getting older, that's just part of it and you have to live with it, when there are ways to manage. And you have something to offer no matter your age. And so pushing the elderly in the corner is a no-no.
Yeah.
And I cannot emphasize the importance enough of younger people becoming involved, one, and two, to take a closer look at the diagnosis. How do we go about, Dr. Conyette, regarding the diagnosis of Alzheimer's and looking at the difference? How are we going to manage? Is the management the same with regards to Alzheimer's versus, for example, Lewy body dementia? Can you share a little bit more about that diagnostic process and what you as a clinician would look for? And as well, what should the caregiver, the relative, or the friend have some red flags about to say, listen, I need to get to the doctor ASAP?
Yeah. So I can start with the last one first. As Michele was talking about the Alzheimer's disease, the thing is that it's sometimes a difficult task to distinguish the early stages of dementia from normal aging because of the gradual appearance of the symptoms. So sometimes, after this early in the disease process, the person probably may not even be aware that they have some deficit. But Alzheimer's disease, persons living with this, it spreads through the brain in a kind of characterized sequence. So we have what we call simplified version, mild, moderate, and severe Alzheimer's disease. With mild disease, it can last up to 2 to 4 years. And the first part of the brain that's affected in persons living with Alzheimer's disease is a part of the brain that looks like the hippocampus, looks like a seahorse. It's called the hippocampus. And this area in the brain is the area involved in the formation as well as the retrieval of memory. So that's why memory is usually first to be affected. So persons in this early stage of Alzheimer's disease, they preserve their oldest memories. So they have long-term memories preserved. And they start to frequently forget things that they recently learned. And then they start to ask more and more questions. And sometimes this is what relatives notice first, the repetitiveness. And Michele could give examples because she has first-hand examples of her dad. And I always listen to her stories, and what she tells us is exactly as it's described in the literature. So you start with this memory loss. They forget short term, they retain long term, repetitiveness in asking questions, difficulty in problem solving, things that they're accustomed doing before, all of a sudden it's difficult doing it. Things like balancing their checkbooks will be like difficult. You might see a change in their personality, difficulty in finding the right words, so they may not understand. They know what they want to say, but they may not be able to express it. They may get lost in a familiar place, even in their own homes or their own neighborhoods. They may feel as if they're not too sure where they are. And then when you come on one, start misplacing items. That's mild, Stacy. And then you progress to moderate. And then moderate, and persons living with moderate Alzheimer's disease, this can last up to 10 years. And in this stage, the areas of the brain that control like language and reasoning and sensory becomes more affected. So persons will get more confused, they maybe get more forgetful, and they may require more help to do the activities of daily living. Things that they're accustomed to doing by themselves, they will require help to do these things. They may lose track of where they are. They may even call their relatives by other names, not recognize their family members who they're accustomed to seeing or their close friends. So that's moderate. And by the time it progresses to severe Alzheimer's disease, this stage lasts about 1 to 3 years. And these are the persons in which the plaques and the tangles, those are things when you look under the microscope, but you see, these have spread throughout the brain. And
Mhm.
these persons become fully dependent.
And this is where
If we know
sometimes
this
they
history,
refer to physio when they're fully dependent.
Yeah.
so
Mhm.
if we know how Alzheimer's disease, the stages, when they present to us as clinicians, the first thing we have to do is take a history.
Yes.
I want to find out about this person. I want to find
Can
out their
can
past
I
medical
underscore
history.
that, Dr. Conyette-Bowen? Let me underscore that for the viewers. Sometimes I think patients find we're trying to mind the business when we ask questions, but they don't get, and I want everybody to listen, for the doctors, for the physiotherapists, for the dietitians, for the speech therapists, part of our investigations is asking for a thorough history.
Correct.
Sometimes a history can give us so much more information than even a scan could
Yeah.
confirm. So it is
Mhm.
vital. So it is not that we want to know your business. It is going to help us determine exactly what is happening and to rule out other underlying issues as well.
Correct. Yeah. So we
But
want
listen,
to,
but listen, you do want to know their business because but their business as it relates to their medical history.
That's
And
right. Yes,
I
that's
am going
right.
to say that up front
yes.
Yes,
because we keep hiding when
yes,
in truth and in fact, Alzheimer's is a disease that folks live with. They don't
yes,
die from it. We no longer say they suffer with it. The caregivers, maybe the ones who might be suffering because they're not well informed and they
yes,
may not have the skills and the tools. But we need to know the history. So there has to be a measure of faith in the physician, that listen when we talk, because if you have any other ailment, physical ailment, you can tell the doctor everything,
Yeah.
because in your mind, I want to get well. I could
yes,
get well if I tell the doctor everything.
yes,
However, when it comes to things with the head, mental, neurological, we say,
yeah,
hey, we ain't talking too much.
yes.
Yeah.
No, because we are made up mind, body,
That's
spirit.
right.
Yeah.
We do
All
the spirit
interact.
thing when we
Holistic.
worship our various places of worship. We do the physical thing by doing annual checkups
Yes.
with our physician. Do we do checkups with the head? No,
Yeah.
sometimes
So,
we are afraid. And so the Alzheimer's Association would like people to really get on board and think of the whole being
yes.
and treat with the whole being. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much for that point.
So
So we're talking
the
about the history
history.
taking
Yeah.
and
We,
take us
so
on
we
that journey.
so we'll ask you like about your past medical history. Do you have a history of diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol? Have you had strokes before? Thyroid disease? Are you a vegetarian? Have you been hospitalized before? We ask about your family history. Anybody in your family has Parkinson's disease? Anybody in your family ever had is living with dementia? You know, we ask about your drug history. We want to know what medications you're taking. After we take a thorough history, trust me, we will have a list of differential diagnoses in our mind. And when we take the history, it's not just from the person, it's also from the caregiver or the relative who came with the person. An informant history is very important because things that the person who's living with, especially in the early stages that they may not recognize, the caregiver can point us in that direction. After we take the history, we examine you. And it's not just listening to your heart and listening to your lungs. We do a neurological exam. We check your tone, your power reflexes. Vision testing is important. Hearing testing is important. Your vital signs, your blood pressure, your pulse, your blood sugar. We do we assess your activities of daily living. So we try to find what you can do on your own. So it's a geriatric history we take. After we take the history and we examine, then we go ahead and we order some laboratory tests. Yes, we do tests because it's important for us to recognize that there are some conditions other than Alzheimer's disease that can provoke confused thinking,
Yes.
that can cause you to have trouble focusing, that can even cause memory loss. So we do blood tests, we checking for anemia. We check into for underactive thyroid. We check in for depression, infection, kidney disease, liver disease. So yes, there are blood tests we can do. And in some cases, we have to do brain imaging.
Yes.
Not all the time, but sometimes we do brain imaging because, especially if you're thinking that there's some other reversible cause of the memory loss. For example, somebody who occurs from falling down and end up having a bleed in their brain or subdural, or
Yes.
somebody who has something called normal pressure hydrocephalus. So there are lots of things that we do. So we take the history, we examine, we order certain investigations, we refer that to primary care doctors, and we have specialist clinics throughout Trinidad and Tobago called memory clinics,
Mm.
where we can refer these patients where they get neuropsychological testing. So, or if you want to go privately, you can go to a neurologist or a psychiatrist.
And
Tell me
still,
a little bit more on that memory clinic. Sorry, Miss Saunders, but I'm interested in knowing a little bit more about that memory clinic
Yeah.
because we are, as the public, quite unaware of the services that are available to us
Yes.
until it's too late on until we are affected. So tell us more.
We have a memory clinic in Southwest Regional Health Authority. It's situated, you know, where the oncology clinic is at San General. It's next door. Yeah.
Oh,
So, and it's every Tuesday. There's a memory clinic on Pembroke Street that's under the Northwest Regional Health Authority. We have one at Mount Hope Hospital. So
wow.
that's North Central Regional Health Authority. And there's one in Tobago. So we have
That's
four memory clinics in Trinidad. Free.
free.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
it. That is amazing information. Thank you so much for that. And I mean, I worked at San John, so I'm wondering if that existed while I was there, or if that was that's a fairly new development. I left in 2009, and I can't remember.
Yeah.
But that's fantastic
Okay.
to know that we have these services available. And Ms. Saunders, you were going to add something before I.
yeah, no, yes. Leanne was talking about, getting the brain scan and so on, and that's important because, as she correctly said, and we need to highlight that some more. It doesn't always have to be Alzheimer's. It can be
Yes,
something that
correct.
else that is treatable. So not because you're forgetting, not because you're displaying one or two signs or symptoms. So it can turn out that it's not Alzheimer's. So this is why it's so important. Early detection.
Detection.
Early detection. Even while you are still, relatively collective. If
Yes,
you go with a relative and you seek to get that diagnosis one way or the other.
yes.
Yeah. Hmm.
And it brings us to this concept of genetics. And Shavana, one of our viewers, is asking, is genetics the main suspect of developing Alzheimer's disease? And is there genetic testing done routinely, for example, if someone has been diagnosed for their relatives? Tell us more about this whole concept, because sometimes there's a fear that starts to seep in when one relative has Alzheimer's as a caregiver, and the thought is, am I going to get to this point as well?
Okay. So what research has shown is basically that there isn't a single cause of Alzheimer's disease. Likely, it develops from multiple factors, such as genetics, lifestyle, environment. And yes, scientists have identified factors that increase the risk of Alzheimer's disease. So there are some risks that, like age and your family history, that you can't change. And there's new evidence that suggests that there may be other factors that we can influence. That's why asking a thorough history and their past medical history is important.
So, what treatments currently exist? Again, we know that Alzheimer's is a progressive
Yeah.
disease. It can span years, it can span 20 plus years, even in some cases. So, what treatments are there currently, and what exactly are they treating? Because we're saying that there's no cure that we know of.
Correct.
What do we have available? What do you wish we had available to improve the management of Alzheimer's?
Michelle?
Well, well, Aricept is one of the um, more popular drugs. What it does, it slows the progression, and if taken early, it can do wonders for life and memory and so on. So, but you see, as we said, there's no real cure. I mean, we have heard of strides being made and so on, but what we think of is how best can we have this person live with the disease in a manner that allows them to function, um, you know, more independently than without the drug. Okay, so that's our recept we think of. But then there are a few caveats there. You have to know, because I remembered when we were thinking of giving it to my father. We one of the side effects was that it increases libido, and so he says, you know what, we don't kind of need that thing right now. Okay,
Yes.
but so these are the things you look at now. Some people have said that, listen, if you take coconut, oil, that, and it was big on the in the pharmacy for quite some time now. It's died down a little bit, but we're never really sure. Some people have taken it and they claim it works, so it's a kind of trial and error. But we are thinking of things like sleep. If you it's not hereditary, but you think of, so sleep, there's a correlation between sleep and Alzheimer's disease, and they're talking now
Wow.
about deep sleep. And just today again, we were learning, we're thinking of hypertensive people, people with diabetes, and so on.
Yes.
You think in terms of all of that. So what you really want to do is live a healthy life.
Mhm.
How do you do that? My father, and it's there's not a real guarantee, but it's certainly a help, because my father died, God rest his soul, when he was 90 years old, just short of 91. And the thing is, he would exercise daily. He never took any butter or anything like that on his bread. He would eat his fruit every morning. He would sip his hot water every morning. He just lived decently and in order, food wise, what he took in and what he ate. And then he was still had to live with the disease. But there are other factors related to. He didn't. I would say my father didn't get a whole lot of sleep. I seem to be following in that track. But yeah, he would be dozing, before midnight, and I would say, Dad, why don't you go to bed? You doze and doze, and then around midnight or 1 o'clock, he would go in, and then he would be up again at 5.
Yes,
So you see,
it's amazing that there's so many linkages with sleep
yes,
that we take for granted. Sleep is
yes,
not just about getting your beauty rest. Sleep
no,
is about improving your overall health, allowing your body to recharge,
yep,
allowing your body to heal. And as you rightly pointed out, and I am a volunteer for the Diabetes Association, and we continue to see more and more evidence in this huge patient population in Trinidad that sleep
mhm,
worsens your diabetic numbers. It worsens your blood pressure. Persons with cancer, they fight it better if you get sufficient rest.
yeah,
So we're looking now that, and you have these common threads. So it is a reminder to all of us that
mhm,
living a healthy lifestyle, everything is in balance, eh? Living a healthy lifestyle
Yep.
can solve so many issues and
Yeah.
manage them better. So if
Yeah.
we look at the healthy lifestyle, we're talking about adequate sleep, and that can
Being
vary depending on
active.
your age.
mhm,
Being active, being physically active,
Yeah.
and
Not
the
smoking.
not smoking, oh my lord, not
mhm,
smoking,
Yeah.
mhm,
not drinking excessively,
yeah,
um,
mhm,
handling stress,
Yep.
handling stress. I found, I don't
Depression
know,
as well.
the depression, correct, things that we don't like to talk about,
Yeah.
because
yes,
still in Trinidad and Tobago, we still believe that depression is so taboo. But all of us are affected at some point in our lives, eh?
Yeah.
At some point, and we need to manage that depression. Our bodies don't heal when we're depressed. We produce more adrenaline, which slows down healing rather than having the feel good hormones.
Yeah.
Um, and of course, diet, eating
Yep.
balanced, healthy meals. We like to talk about eating strawberries and things. We have mangoes, we have watermelon. We instead of rice, we have dasheen. We have callaloo, we have bhaji. We have so many things in our backyards that we don't embrace.
Yeah.
And I'm getting a little excited about this again because we had a diabetes. Just to give an example, we had a diabetes retreat strategic planning retreat 2 weeks ago. And one of the things we want to put in place, and I'm saying I live in Point Fortin, and for me to get to Port of Spain at a good timely hour for 8 o'clock, I have to leave Point Fortin no later than 4:30.
Oh my gosh.
We expect, and even as a clinician, we tell patients, listen, you need to exercise 30 minutes a day. But we have persons leaving home at 4:30, leaving home, getting to work, you're getting back home at 7, you have to see about your family. So we too, in what we prescribe with regards to living a healthy lifestyle, we need to start taking into consideration what that patient is living and to insert. So I have found myself now saying, listen, when you get to work, you have 15 minutes before you start. You're going to do X amount of squats. You're going to do whatever for 10 minutes before you start. Before lunch, another 10 minutes before you leave, so that they can integrate it into their lives. And I'm saying this because people always say to us, and Dr. Bowen, you would agree, people say to us, well, I don't have time. I don't have time to cook. It's easier to buy the KFC. Is it able? So we have to start helping our patients to get strategies to live this healthy lifestyle. And I found this acronym. I'm sure you all know of it when I was reading more about Alzheimer's. How to prevent the Alzheimer's by shielding ourselves. And the S stood for sleep. H, handling stress. I, interaction. Don't isolate the older people. E for exercise. L, learn new things all the time. And D, diet. So we're shielding ourselves from Alzheimer's. We're shielding ourselves from diabetes and hypertension. And this is so important. People, these things are free. We are clogging up the hospital system because we are not shielding ourselves. And this is another opportunity for us to remember we must do that shielding. So thank you so much for bringing that up.
Yeah. And it's also that's another advantage of having the memory clinics, because at the memory clinics, the specialists, they will basically, after take the history and examine you and do the investigations. Yes, we know that there's no treatment available to cure dementia or cure Alzheimer's disease, but there are some medications that we use to temporarily improve the symptoms,
Yes.
like the drug that Michele mentioned. Donepezil is the medical name, and that group of medications work by boosting the levels of a chemical messenger that involve in memory and involve in judgment. It's used, it might be prescribed also for other types of dementia, but we have it available in the hospital system. The other thing that we also treat is sometimes persons living with dementia have non-cognitive symptoms.
Yes.
They may be aggressive and agitated. And sometimes we may have to prescribe medications for that, as well as other lifestyle changes. You know, if you have a relative living with dementia, you have to prevent things like wandering. So there are other things, the built environment that we prescribe as well. So it's not just medication, it's lifestyle change, plus change the built environment. That's why having the caregivers come with the persons living with dementia to the clinic is so important.
Yes. Somebody has just messaged me, and I'll ask Dr. Bowen to answer this. With regards to the aggression, actually, I'll ask Michele this shortly, but we are now looking at statistics saying that Alzheimer's is in the top 10 leading causes of death in the US. And does Alzheimer's itself lead to death, or is it's the comorbidities that surround the disease itself?
So it can be the comorbidities that's associated with it. And as you mentioned those numbers, I mean, I just want to give you some other startling numbers, Stacey, if that's okay.
Please.
Because if you go on the WHO site, basically they've said that worldwide there are over 55 million persons living with dementia.
That
55
is
million
alarming.
persons. Remember, we said dementia is the whole umbrella term. So
Yes.
there are over 55 million persons living with dementia. And most of these persons are in low and middle income countries.
hmm So what does that
Right?
say?
So as the proportion of older persons also in the population increases, is that's what we're seeing now. We're expecting this number to rise to as much as over 70,000 by 2030, and now in 2023.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
That is frightening.
It is. And the question is enough being done into research to manage Alzheimer's? And again, I have family members who have suffered from cancer. My grandmother, bilateral breast, a first cousin, bilateral breast, my mother, colon, um, my aunt's colon and liver. And a lot of research is being done because there's such a vocal movement behind. But when it comes to diseases such as Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, where a lot of the signs and symptoms cannot be identified easily, I think there's a gap with regards to the research that could be done or is being done. And are we doing any research here? And do we have any information for Trinidad and Tobago?
Um, I know
Go ahead.
Michelle, I know this is what Michelle loves to talk about. I just gonna put a little piece.
Of course.
In 2018, which was about 5 years ago, Professor Davis, he's now Professor Davis, um, and his colleagues, they published a research paper entitled Dementia Prevalence in a Population with a High Cardiovascular Risk. And the reason why they look at persons with high cardiovascular risk is because the WHO actually said that the prevalence of dementia in the Caribbean and Latin America is one of the highest in the world,
Wow.
right? And both cardiovascular disease and diabetes have been identified as significant risk factors. So using that data, Davis and colleagues, they basically looked at dementia prevalence. They looked at us, their study had like just 1,800, I think it is, around 1,800 participants. And they actually found that the prevalence rate of dementia was in about 23% of those persons.
Wow. That is a high prevalence.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So,
Yes.
and we're looking again and look at the diseases that you call there, that we are one of the highest
Yes.
in the
Cardiovascular.
world.
Yep. Yep.
So there's a question here, as you mentioned, some of those comorbidities from Hilary Batiste. Is there such a thing as type 3 diabetes that can lead to Alzheimer's?
Hmm. I do. Type 3 diabetes is a term that some people use to describe Alzheimer's disease. When you
Ah,
Google, yeah, type 3 has been used unofficially to describe diabetes that affects persons living with Alzheimer's disease.
ah. So Hilary, I hope you got your response and thanks for tuning
Yeah.
in and asking that question. Remember, viewers, feel free. We have a few minutes remaining. Use
Yeah.
this opportunity to
Let
tap into the brains of these
let
ladies. Go ahead, respond.
Stacey, let me say this. I am so happy that you have people who are tuned in and who are calling. September every year is what is called World Alzheimer's Month. September 21st is World Alzheimer's Day. All these people who are online, we are imploring you to get in touch with us and help us make up the numbers and spread the word. The theme for this year is never too early, never too late. And of course, we are talking about diagnoses and so on. And so everybody who's online here can chip in, can lend a voice. We would like to start something at the Alzheimer's Association where we have caregivers and the ones being cared for share their stories. When we go down to Separia on Saturday, Alzheimer's is going to have a booth at Liane, remind me of the name of the church.
Oh,
I
I
can't
can't
remember,
remember
but
the
they're
name
having a
of it.
health fair.
Yeah.
And we are going to have a lot of brochures and so on for people to take and to read about it. But you can come, you can help because the numbers help spread the word. And since we as an association are about education and training, you can learn so much more if you get on board, become a member, because remember, we can't run the association without funding. and we do have one or two benefactors and so on, but we would want people to get involved, share their stories, let others know it's not all doom and gloom. Of course, with the Alzheimer's, those who are a little aggressive, and as Liane said, there are drugs to treat that aggression. We treated with it with our father with humor. And
Yeah.
so there's that other side. We would pretend. So, Dad, are you going to work today? And he would look at you. Now tell me, when last did you see me get in the car to go to work? And we would, thank you, Shavana. Thank you, Shavana. You've been constant, online. Thank you so much. Yes, so there are ways we can treat with folks who are living with the disease. They're not dead. They can still talk. They
Yeah.
can engage. And you know what? We have at our support centers, because we have support groups, what we do, music therapy, art
Yeah.
Art
therapy.
therapy.
We had our first sip and paint last year,
Mm-hmm.
and the caregivers brought the ones being cared for. And my gosh, you should have seen the engagement and the paintings and the so these are things that can happen. And when you share, when people interact and realize, well, you know what, I am not in this alone. There
Yes.
are others, and they share. It helps to ease the burden. And
Yes.
one other thing I want to say, caregivers, they are usually singular. I want everybody who's online, who knows of a caregiver, who is a friend, help that person out. Even though the caregiver may have a brother or sister, and you may be tempted to say, well, where is your brother? Where is your sister? Don't ask that question. If the caregiver is your friend, commit to helping that caregiver.
Yes.
Commit to doing that. After all, it's these same elderly and those who maybe with early onset who cared for us.
That's
So what
correct.
better way to give back than to help in that regard? Yeah?
And this passion, Ms. Saunders Clavery, that you have, there's a passion. It's not just about spreading information. You have a passion for this. Tell us where this passion has stemmed from, and
Well,
what you learned on that journey.
listen, first, when my father, and it's all because of my father, John Saunders, and he would like to tell everybody, John Mackenzie Saunders, because when he eventually had to be put in a home, the caregivers were they used to love to sit and listen to him. But Dad, he, well, we like to say, he became stricken at one point. We didn't first recognize it because he was a talker, and he would keep coming back and says, "Don't mind me asking you this again, but so and so and so." And he knew that he was forgetting, and so it progressed. But as I said, he lived with my mother. One brother lived in the island. I wasn't there, and we sort of team tagged. And when I got vacation, because I would teach, and when I got vacation, every vacation I would go over. And they lived in St. Vincent. I would go over to St. Vincent, and we would do our part. So it stemmed from there. And my father was truly, truly a marvelous man, a caring soul. So you couldn't help but care for him. Now, I'm not saying the experience is going to be the same for everybody, because we have had callers who would call in and they're seeing about their mother in law, for example. Oh, she's a wicked person. She's an evil person. Stop, stop. Even if she were wicked and evil, as you might have thought, think of now. This
Yes.
person is trying his or her best to live the best way they know how. And as I say, don't be combative with them. To be combative is to stress yourself out even more as a caregiver. Try humor. Invite somebody else to come. Let's sit and talk with auntie, uncle, my brother has early onset. Try to, and don't say to them, no, there are ways of speaking, and the language that you use. So you don't say to them, do you remember? So don't say that. Simply say, the days, what about those days when
Yeah.
you were? But don't say, do you remember?
Yes.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And so,
Language plays
and
such an
Communication is important.
yes,
Yeah.
and if they're telling you, I used to do so and so, I was a famous dancer or something. Really?
That's
Yes.
it.
You don't tell them you were never a dancer. Well, don't do that. Don't do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
You go along with it, and you would be
Correct.
surprised to know how that the chemicals, Liane can talk to the chemicals that are released in your body.
Yeah.
Yes.
You become now
Yes.
lighter and you're more engaging with the
Yes.
person and you, at the end of the day, you as the caregiver will feel all the better for it.
Better
Now,
for
as
it.
I say, we have education and training programs
Yeah.
specifically for caregivers,
Yeah.
what they should do when they're caring for someone, but we also have those what they should do when they're caring for themselves. Yes,
Correct.
Sabita, don't
Correct.
argue
Yeah.
with the person. That's been
Yeah.
foolish. That's
Yeah.
been very foolish. Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't argue with the person with dementia. So these are the things. There's so many things we can learn while
Yes.
you care for, and this is why I implore people to please get involved. You
Yes.
know, for email. We do best with email
Right.
Yeah.
simply because right now we are in between office persons.
Right.
So the phone, we will get the messages and answer in time. But please don't get
I
frustrated.
see emails just streaming at the bottom of your screen.
Yes,
You
Yes.
yes,
see an
yes.
email,
Mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm.
you
Yes.
can also like the organization there on Facebook, the
Yeah.
Yes,
Alzheimer's
yes,
Association of
And join
Trinidad.
our association. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
And don't get too fed up if you don't get us right off the bat. Just know we will get back to you.
that's
We
Yes.
right.
will
Yeah,
get back to you definitely.
So
that's
Yeah.
right.
I'm continuing from what Michelle was mentioning. What we
Yes.
do as an association is just that. We provide support for persons living with Alzheimer's, dementia, and other dementias. We provide a listening ear. Our phone number, as you have in the bottom of the ticker tape, is available. Our email, alstrinbago@gmail.com. Email us, as Michelle mentioned. Join our Facebook page. We raise awareness about Alzheimer's dementia as well as other dementias, and we do it formally as well because we have education and training programs. As Michelle mentioned, we have a memorandum with UB Reutech. So when you do our formal training courses, you get a certificate, a UB Reutech certificate.
Yeah.
We also try to empower persons living with Alzheimer's dementia and other dementias, and we try to dispel myths. And Stacy was mentioning some of the myths earlier. You know, some people come and tell you all memory loss is Alzheimer's disease. You know, by
Yes.
having these educational programs and by doing these shows like what you have here, Stacy, I mean, that's why we were so eager and we were so excited to come on your show. We want to dispel these myths, and because these myths add to the stigma attached to Alzheimer's disease, and they stand in the way of our ability to understand and help persons living with the disease and their caregivers.
Thank you
So this
so
gets
much
us
for the
excited.
work that you all are doing. And I want to share because everyone may not have seen this question from Ryan Hospitalis. Hi, Ryan. He lives a stone's throw away from me, by the way. Just asking to provide the names of some specialists who can properly diagnose this type of dementia. And of course, on a show like this, we don't want to highlight any specific people,
Yeah.
but definitely, as Dr. Conyette-Bowen responded, any neurologist or psychiatrist or geriatric specialist.
Yeah.
And remember, we do have the memory clinics available at the San Fernando General Hospital, at Eric Williams Medical Sciences Complex, fondly known as Mount Hope, Pembroke Street, and of course, there's a memory clinic in Tobago. They have not forgotten Tobago. And
Yes.
all you need is a referral from a primary care doctor.
Yeah.
So that is your GP. And Shavana has expressed interest already in the caregivers training.
Right.
Yeah, so tell us more of that.
Right. I was just gonna do it, ask for a little plug here. Our next training session is going to be in November, and it's a 1 day training session for 6 hours. And we do it in collaboration with UV Reutech. They are our partners. We have an MOU with them. At the end of which you will get a certificate. And of course, you know UV Reutech is an accredited institution. So I can assure you, you will be in not only for a treat, but you will get some invaluable information that you can use as a caregiver, someone who's thinking of looking for a job in a care home, because that's what some care homes do. They send their prospective workers to us for training, and then we move it from there. Yes.
I dare to say as well, clinicians, we are also caregivers. And I think it's important for us um, to put ourselves in that position so that we can communicate even better with our patients and their families. So I would like to be part of it, please. So just send me
Sure.
a note. I'm on the Facebook page, and
Yes.
I will also share that information
Sure.
when it comes
Thank
out.
you.
So it's truly
Thank you.
exciting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys, this is right here. Everything is being provided right here at our fingertips. And I know we can go on and on. It's already almost 8 o'clock. I've kept you
Oh,
some
Oh
days
my gosh.
so long, and you all have been such a fantastic audience. Thank you, Shavana, Chandra, Sabita, Audrey, Ryan, everybody else who has sent in questions. And this link will be available. Hillary, thank you for your question about the type 3 diabetes. It's just such a fantastic conversation. We can go on and on, but remember, people, there are over 55 million people worldwide, which means there are more. Those are who have been diagnosed.
yes.
55 million people with Alzheimer's. And
Yeah.
even though it's a progressive disease with no cure yet, we have treatments to delay and slow down the progression.
Yeah.
There are services right here in Trinidad to help diagnose accurately and to give you the necessary support so that you can improve the quality of life of the patient as well as yourself as the caregiver.
Yeah.
And remember, September the 21st is World Alzheimer's
Alzheimer's
Day.
Day. Yeah.
So get on board, get involved. Thank you, Wendy, for your comments.
And
Wendy
the
has
whole
said,
of September is World Alzheimer's Month.
and correct. So it's an entire month of
Yes.
activities. So we want you to get on board. I want you to remember, and I'm happy that Chandra is here. Chandra is a very active member, actually, of the Diabetes Association. And we need to take this back, Chandra, again, even more impetus to get diabetes eradicated where possible, because it is one of those things that is linked with Alzheimer's disease.
Yes.
But let me not start that conversation because we'll be here for another hour. Thank you so much, Ryan, for your comments. We have so many people just happy that you all came on. And I just want to give you all just a few moments each, just to give you a final plug before we sign off. Miss Michele Saunders Clavery.
Final plug. Be on the lookout for what we call Launch and Lunch, where we launch World Alzheimer's Month with a luncheon. And it's a fundraiser, but it's also an informative time where we share lots of information. How can you become part of the group? Email us at alstrinbago@gmail.com
Yeah.
and tell us. Okay,
Yeah.
that's it.
Thank you.
Yeah. So
Dr.
thank
Tanya,
you again.
your
Thank
last
you
word.
again. Thank you again, Stacy. Because the numbers of persons living with dementia worldwide, 55 million and rising, projected to reach 139 million by 2050. You know, this is persons living with dementia. So we need to start from now. Education is important. Communication is important. Early diagnosis is important. And even if there's late diagnosis, that is also important.
Yes,
The main thing is getting a diagnosis so we could do something about it. Caregivers, we have not forgotten you. We have caregiver support groups throughout Trinidad and in Tobago. So you can join our caregiver support groups where you have other caregivers and you can brainstorm what you're going
yes,
through, ask for about ideas. You need the support as well because we are aware that a lot of times the caregivers are informal,
yes.
trained caregivers. You
Mhm.
know, so we are here for you, the Alzheimer's Association of Trinidad and Tobago. Join us. We are NGO and we're a working board. As I know Michelle, I don't know how she didn't say at this time, but we're a working board. And
Yes.
we want to encourage persons to join our association so we can spread the word and shield ourselves from
And
Alzheimer's
shield
disease.
ourselves.
Yeah.
Thank you all so very much, ladies. Don't go anywhere. Stay right there. Let me just have a final word with our viewers.
Yes.
So stay tuned. Ladies and gentlemen, it was a fantastic hour. Thank you all so much for joining me on Real Time with Dr. Stacy. There's so much information that we received and so much that we can do, even as laypersons. So I encourage you to become an active part of the Alzheimer's Association of Trinidad and Tobago. Sometimes you think you may not have time, but sometimes your input, even in an activity, even sending a shout out, even sharing their information lends itself to so much more. So don't think that you don't have the time. There's always time to be part of such an organization. And remember what is happening in September. Look out for more information on the Alzheimer's Association on Trinidad and Tobago's Facebook page. Look out for information on my Facebook page, Stacy de Gale, as well as my Back in Motion Physical Therapy Services page. And don't forget to check out their website. I'm going to just post it up here for you. Their website, www.alztrinbago.org. Be part of it. Thank you so much for tuning in. And feel free to drop me a line. Let me know what else you want to hear about on Real Time with Dr. Stacy. And I'm not going to be a stranger as long again. You're going to hear from me in the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned as we take control of our health in the comfort of our own homes, because our health is our wealth, and it is all that information is right at our fingertips. So take care, everybody. Stay safe, and see you again very, very soon.